You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, your politically outraged host today, and with me, as always, is my partner,
Rocco.
Rocco, who is not politically outraged. He's just so even-keeled. I wish I could be that way.
I'm just outraged.
You're just outraged. Not politically, just outraged. Mainly because he has to work with me and because I make him listen to the engineering joke of the week. All right, you ready for this, Rocco?
Ready.
All right, this one's simple. What is an engineer's favorite type of tree?
I have no idea.
Well, it's a geometry, of course. Huh?
Oh, God. That's horrible.
That's horrible. I love them. They're horrible. Okay, folks. So why am I politically outraged today? Well, here's what I'm going to do. So I thought that today we were going to be doing another episode of our, this month in design build, right? Where we kind of take a look at news items in our industry. Unfortunately, I hit the first article that I wanted to discuss on today's show, and it kind of launched into a topic in and of itself. The article is from The Guardian, and it's called Wage Theft Rampant in U.S. Construction. And this article goes into a lot of specifics on the way that a huge number of very large construction firms are being hit by heavy fines from the U.S. government regulators due to what they are calling intentional wage theft. So let's start with what is wage theft. Well, essentially wage theft is when an employer is violating labor laws and not paying their people the amount that they're actually owed under the law. All right. So what do we mean by right? This includes things like, people, you're not paying minimum wage, right? Or you're not paying people overtime and you're misclassifying your worker, as a 1099 subcontractor instead of a full-time employee, right? Along with a lot of other really questionable labor practices. So the U.S. Labor Department estimated wage theft this year and every year, really, over $50 billion, with a B, $50 billion every single year is taken from workers in wage theft. And the construction industry is noted as one of the most common violators of wage laws. So to kind of put this into perspective, if you went out and you combine all other types of theft in America over the last year, if you took all the shoplifting from every store, all the larceny, all the burglary, all the car thefts, everything, add it all up, that equals less than $10 billion worth of loss. Okay, so this is a very serious issue that's had a massive impact on labor supply and worker trust in our industry. Right now, the rules and the penalties here are still heavily favoring the employers who are committing the crime, but that seems to be changing pretty rapidly. Right now the government is issuing fines, but they are, quite honestly, they're just a joke. The Department of Labor can issue fines of up to $1,000 per violation, which is meaningless against the potential savings that these large corporations are seeing by violating the law. Right? When you are saving tens of thousands off of every single worker every single year, that $1,000 fine, that's just it's just like kind of a cost of doing business calculation, right? This active follow-up by the government to address this, it's well-intentioned, and I applaud it, but at the moment, it's pretty ineffective. And I think that the negative impact of these practices are really in other areas that damage our industry and and our companies in really negative ways. And I want to get into a few of those issues and how they impact us and some of the other potential pitfalls that you guys probably want to be on the lookout for here. So, Rocco, if we look beyond the financial and the legal concerns, right, what type of impact do you personally think wage theft at this scale has on our available labor construction pool?
I think it impacts just people's like the youngsters' mentality of do I get into construction? Right. I think the construction industry has a bad rap for not paying people well and working extremely hard, and I don't want to be a blue collar person, let's say, so I think it does get a bad rap, and it makes it difficult to bring people into the labor force because of this. We had somebody from the General Building Contractors Association in Pennsylvania join us probably over a year ago now, and she was talking about all the great programs that they're putting out to help recruit young people, and how difficult it is even today to recruit young people in the industry. So I think it's changing, right? I think part of the this workforce shortage is kind of helping this cause to make the field a little bit more attractive. But I think it overall it's had a bad reputation because of the points that I just pointed out. Would you think I'm right there, Jim?
No, I think you hit that dead on. I think it's exactly where the problem lies. Or one of the major problems. It's not the only problem we face, but really it is a huge part of it. I think you're absolutely right. So I tell you what, let's talk a bit about how most of us in the construction world, and even in the design side of things, how do we see this playing out on a regular basis, right? It isn't always a clear-cut case of companies who are skirting the law. Right? Sometimes it can actually just be misunderstanding the law or being told that, what we're doing is, it's okay, right? We've always done it like that. It's fine. Or, oh, no. It's written company policy. We have a formal policy and the workers are agreeing to that when they sign on. So it's okay. Setting aside the fact that both of those answers are complete legal BS, a lot of times it's a result of using processes that on the surface seem like they're perfectly legit. And the biggest one that you see in the construction industry, it's the concept of a labor broker. Labor brokers are hired to handle all of the hiring and the pay and the insurances, et cetera, for a construction company, right? The idea here is that you're just going to hire this outside company, this labor broker, who's going to handle all the legalities, and you just pay them a fixed fee, right? So you're safe, right? If there's a violation, then that's on the broker, right? It's not your problem. Well, yes and no. Look, in most cases, all right, this article in particular points out that these brokers are usually former employees of a given construction company who are being paid to form their own brokerage and do things like hiring illegal immigrants, right? Shorting laborers' hours, right? Refusing to pay people overtime, et cetera. As they're acting as a buffer for the parent construction firm that they really work for, even though, they get these legal docs. Well, I'm an independent company. And it's a type of legal dodge that is coming under very heavy scrutiny by the government. And it is not going to provide the coverage very soon that people are hoping for. The other thing that these brokers do is they engage a lot of, 1099, quote unquote, independent contractors who they claim they aren't employees. So I don't have to pay them benefits and I don't have to pay their taxes and I don't have to give them overtime. They're a contractor. The problem here is that most of these workers are just everyday working people who are forced to submit bills in order to get paid. Right? They're not companies. They don't have corporate protections. They don't pay lower corporate tax rates and so on. They're just being forced to work at illegally reduced wages by the threat of not being allowed to work at all if you don't do it this way. Just calling someone a contractor does not make them one. You know, if that person is spending more than 25% of their time working for you, then they are legally considered to be an employee by both the IRS and the Department of Labor. Right? If you guys listening are working with people in this scenario, you better start addressing it right away, because I'm telling you, it's going to come back and it's going to bite you in a really big way if you don't. Right? So Rocco, right? We use 1099 contractors here at Zentech, but we're really careful in how much we use them and making sure that they're fully licensed and certified and so on, that they're independent companies. And I know that's really your end of the business, right? So kind of, can you outline for folks what steps do you have to go through for all of that so that we know it's all above board?
Yeah, I mean, for one, we rely on the accountant, right? It's a lot of people, you try to avoid paying accountants, paying lawyers, but you want that guidance from your accountant because they know tax law better than anybody else. That's their business, what they do day in and day out. And outside of that, we track hours, right? We track the time that our contractors spend and watch those hours. And if it's getting too excessive, we talk to the accountant or we look for other resources because, they're like you're saying, there's a limited number of hours that you can have a contractor working for you before you have to start classifying them in a different way. So that's pretty much what we do on our end.
Yeah, just a little bit of care and it goes a long way, right? So look, folks, right? Rocco and I, we're small business owners, and we know how vital the bottom line of your company is. But at the end of the day, some things are just wrong, and stealing from your workers is one of the worst things that you can do, right? Not only from a moral standpoint, but from a practical one as well. Workers are not stupid. They may be desperate and they may accept what you're doing because they need to eat and they have families to take care of. But don't for 1 minute assume that they don't understand what you're doing to them. I promise you they do. And I promise you they're just waiting for the moment that they're going to be able to get back some of their own and make you pay for what you've done. Right? Now, look, I want everybody to tell you, I'm not saying that everyone out there is doing this or that even a majority of construction people work this way. Right? I am saying that there's a danger here that your company may be caught up using labor practices that are just, accepted and considered normal, right? That can wind up putting you out of business, right? So I tell you what, let's take a quick break here. And when we get back, I'm going to give you guys a personal story about what I saw happen to a firm that I worked for around this issue, all right? So stick around, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. Hello everybody, this is Jim and Rocco with Zentech Consultants, and we wanted to talk to you today about Bluebeam Review, the premier quantity takeoff estimating and markup software for PDF out there on the market today. And at Zentech, we are a premier Bluebeam partner here in the US. We're here to help you guys with all your Bluebeam needs, from software sales to training, consulting, configuration, and everything in between in all things Bluebeam, from the standard version to the extreme version and anything else you might need. So, in terms of Bluebeam, Rocco, how do people reach out to us if they want to start that conversation?
Yeah, just hit up our website, give us a ring, or send us an email, or through Osmosis. That works too.
Osmosis is good.
Yeah, zentechconsultants.net or sales@zentechconsultants.net, or give us a ring, 866-824-4459.
All right, Zentech Consultants, your home for all of your Bluebeam software needs. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking about wage theft today. Not a topic I was planning on, but the article I read ticked me off, and I needed to rant. So, you, my poor listeners, are kind of stuck with me on my soapbox yet again.
What about me?
You have to deal with me. You're my partner. You don't get to do anything but listen. It's just the way it is. You can't get away.
What kind of sympathy do I get?
You get a pity party. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, there was your sympathy. Listen, my military background. I had another definition about where you could find sympathy. It's between two certain words in the dictionary, and If you've ever watched Platoon, I think you guys will know where it is. So, but I'll be nice. It's a PG-13 family show, so I won't go there. All right. So, in the top of the show, right, we were talking about the prevalence of wage theft in the construction industry, right? But I want to clarify something here. It's not construction companies who are doing most of this. Now, I know that sounds nonsensical based on what I said, but bear with me. There is a very real difference between a company and a corporation, right? Companies are usually privately owned, or they're held by a small group of folks, right, who are all working to advance the company. Corporations are large, publicly traded concerns that are driven by the singular need to increase share prices quarter over quarter. And that is where this is really happening. Look, folks, I am a capitalist to my bones. That's why I have my own company, right? So I'm not spouting some, new communist socialist propaganda here. But the reality is corporations, by definition, are evil things. Right? Not by intent, and certainly not because of the people working there are bad in any way. It is simply that each person in a corporation has a focus of meeting their individual metrics at any cost in order to keep their own jobs, right? If you're at a corporation and your job is reducing labor costs, that's what you're paid to do, then, using a labor broker, well, that just makes good fiscal sense, right? If you're tasked with ensuring that jobs get done quickly, right? Then things like, environmental regulations, well, we kind of find ways to route around them whenever we can. They're just slowing us down, right? When your job is to keep material costs down, cheaper wood from a questionable source, well, it's not a major thing. It's not really dangerous. It's just business, right? We're just circumventing a few unnecessary regulations, right? None of these things are atrocious in and of themselves. They're just everyday business decisions. But when you have 10,000 employees doing these decisions, right, every single day, you wind up with a lot of large-scale evil. And that's where wage theft is coming in. I believe that the folks actively engaging in this type of practice are very few and very far between. I think the bulk of it is just a culmination of cost-saving efforts that didn't get well or properly vetted. I don't believe that there's any type of, Illuminati conspiracy to defraud the workers going on here. Rocco, right? You work closely with all of our clients in the design build space. Right? Do you think that there are any of them who'd be actively looking to defraud workers? Or do you agree that most of this is just a byproduct of a really bad system?
Yeah, I don't think it's an everyday practice. I mean, there's few, but it's, they stand out, right? That's what the media goes after. But at the end of the day, as a business owner, do you want to be spending your days in court, or do you want to be spending your days, doing the work that you enjoy doing? I think we all have the answer to that. So, it's not something that I hear about or see every day. That's for sure.
No, and I agree. And it doesn't mean it's like, oh, well, it's okay then kind of excuse. I mean, it still has to be addressed and fixed. Right. But I just don't think that it's done intentionally by most people. And kind of in that line, I promise you guys a story. Everybody loves my stories. I except for Puerto Rico.
Oh God. Here we go.
I promise you guys a story about wage theft and how it can bite a company in their nether regions. So a couple of decades back, because I'm an old man, I was working as, middle management, right? Doing training and technology for a large engineering firm. And these were all good, decent folks, just, building a really successful engineering practice, right? Nobody here was intentionally doing anything wrong, but we had two things going on in the company, both of which I was kind of tangentially involved with. For starters, I was the guy setting up and running all the corporate training. And one of the things that all the partners insisted on was we did these, what we called lunch and learn classes, right? We'd run 2-hour training courses over lunch, right? And then we'd bring in pizza and subs, et cetera, for the employees, right? This way, the logic went, we could provide, lunch, and then the downtime, right, where they were training could be split between the company and the workers, right? The company paid for 1 hour of their time, and they took their lunch hour for the second, right? Which was okay because the company bought lunch. So all good, right? Actually, no, that is not all right. If you ask, and I mean ask, not even order, if you just ask an employee to work through lunch, they have to be paid. Even if you provide food, I don't care if you buy them lobster and beef Wellington, still got to be paid. And this was something that the company had been doing for years before I got there. And we continued it the entire time I was there. It was company policy and it seemed fair enough. So the only person who ever questioned it was me. The second issue at this firm came around how they treated salaried employees. And this, honestly, this is an issue I still see happening all the time in our fields. Engineers and CAD people and construction managers, et cetera, they're all salaried employees, right? So the employees I had at this engineering firm, everybody worked 50 plus hours a week. Right? And that's okay, right? The salary rules allow for that. You work the time you work, you get paid for your flat salaried 40 hours, that's it. And that's fine. All right, that's legal. The issue came up when salaried people would either leave early or they would take a half day. Right? The company insisted, per their written policy, that the employees had to take personal time for a half day, and they would deduct the employees' hours if they left work early. In other words, if you left 2 hours early, because you had to go pick up your kid from school, they were sick, they deducted 2 hours from your pay, even if you'd worked 50 hours, right? So, I'm certain a lot of folks listening have kind of seen these policies or similar ones in their own workplace, right? And once again, in this particular firm, right, the only one who ever questioned this was me. You get the sense I'm a bit of a troublemaker. Poor Rocco. He can vouch for that. I'm always causing.
He's always been. Since he was like 5.
Since I was 5, it's what I do. So look, in the end, some former or disgruntled employee, nobody knows who, dropped a dime to both the IRS and the Department of Labor, and auditors descended on us like a swarm of locusts. They were everywhere, right? And the company wound up having to pay almost $3 million in back pay and penalties. The only reason it was that high is because the IRS got involved, right? And they can actually do a lot more damage than the Department of Labor's measly fines. So as you can imagine, a lot of the mid-level management folks lost their jobs because of these violations. Because, of course, as we all know, all of the important people in the C-suite, they never had any idea that such terrible things were going on in their company. They didn't know. Look, I survived the decimation simply because I was the one person who had raised questions directly with HR on both of those topics, and I had the emails and the documentation that proved it, right? So I survived, but I was not a very popular person with the executive staff after that went down. So Rocco, right? We had a bunch of conversations early on. We started Zentech around salaried staff and their hours and how to process that early on. What did we do as a company, right, to make sure that we were following the proper regulations and the proper processes for dealing with the salaried folks?
Again, it comes down to to paying the professionals to guide you. We hired an attorney, and we hired regularly work with an accountant, right? And the attorney helped us to finalize a handbook so that all the rules and regulations are laid out. And you might think, wow, that's going to cost a ton of money. At the end of the day, it's like I was saying before, if you end up in court, you're going to lose a lot more money and time and agita, So the few $1,000s that you might have to pay an attorney to help you put together the rule book, let's say, is certainly well worth it.
Yep.
In my opinion.
I agree 100%. I said, just look at the company I worked for, right? $3 million in fines. You could have spent $5,000 on an attorney who would have told you, yeah, you can't do any of these things. And you just saved all of that money. So yeah, the truth about lawyers is the thing that we all need to remember. Everybody hates lawyers, even other lawyers, until we need lawyers, in which case they're our very best friends and we love them. So that's what you need to know about lawyers. All right, folks, I'm going to get off my soapbox here, but I kind of want to leave you all with this thought. In a time when we're all just struggling to kind of survive massive labor and skills shortages in the construction space, what do you think just going along and accepting labor practices like these is going to do to your available labor pool, right? When construction has a reputation as the worst wage theft offenders out there, who is going to be willing to come and work for us? Right? If we're shorting hours, benefits, shorting wages, we're going to get nothing but the useless and the desperate. I'll even use the most frightening word of all to any construction company executive out here: unions. If we don't police ourselves and fix this problem, the workers are going to do it for us. And they're going to force us to pay not just, the bottom line legally required wages, but more advanced, equitable, and fair ones via, collective bargaining and negotiated contracts. And that's going to cost you a hell of a lot more than you're saving with these labor brokers. So, either we clean up our own yard, folks, or construction will be fully unionized at every level, which maybe is not a bad thing. All right. So I know, not what you'd expect a small business owner to say, but surprisingly, I'm kind of pro-union. So, all right. With that, we're going to get out of here. Say goodbye to the nice people, Rocco.
Well, I'm going to go have the lobster you're going to make me for dinner now.
See? Don't we all wish we could get away with what Rocco gets? The life of luxury he leads. All right. We're out of here. Go get your lobster. We'll catch you next time, folks, on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.